Reboot your credit card with Apple Card, the credit card created by Apple. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that you can now choose to grow in a high-yield savings account that's built right into the Wallet app. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone and start growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility requirements. Savings accounts provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
Saturday. Christmas comes early.
Welcome to this incredible scene.
Bills.
To the end zone.
Chargers.
It's a touchdown.
An exclusive NFL game.
That's fantastic.
Live in primetime.
Wow.
Only on Peacock.
With a Christmas gift to their fans.
They're having some fun now.
Bills versus Chargers. Saturday, 7:30 Eastern. Exclusively on Peacock.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Keeping Current. We have good news, interesting news, exciting news if you're a Kansas City Current fan. 2 free agents signed this week. With me, I have Daniel Sperry from the Kansas City Star. This is Thad Bell from the Blue Testament. And what was your first reaction when you saw that it was those 2 players?
So my favorite thing was all the speculation when that video came out of everyone thinking it was going to be Morgan Bryan, and then someone else tweeted out a picture of Vanessa DiBernardo, and they are in clothes that would be very similar style of pants. They're like, here's an Instagram photo of her. That's totally how she dresses. And so I thought that like everyone trying to sleuth it was really funny about everything there, but then it ended up, and so they're like, oh no, maybe it's not Mo, or maybe it's not Vanessa DiBernardo, and it ended up being both of them, and that just cracked me up. So a very pleasant surprise. I mean, we'll go into depth on the signings, but my initial reaction was, oh dang. And as you look deeper into it, I think we'll get to it too as well. I'll just keep teasing things that are going to be later on in the podcast. But I think there's some really good things that they're going to bring to the midfield that I think were the biggest weakness for this team in 2022, considering they made it all the way to a final, had a 13-game unbeaten run. I think those were areas that all along both you and I had talked about on the air, off the air, through text messages, in person, whatever, about where their major weaknesses were. And I think these 2 will really help address that. And I can't wait to dive in to what those are.
All right. So just so we're clear, Morgan Gautrat, formerly Morgan Bryan.
Yes.
And I apologize if I don't quite say that name correctly. But
so the funniest thing too was like in an interview I did with Cammy, the GM on Tuesday, when we were talking with her, and we did that Tuesday. Was that the day? When was it? When did we go out there? Was it Wednesday? Wednesday. Okay. Wednesday we went to the facility and talked with Cammy and Matt. And the first thing I said to Cammy was, okay, so tell me about, signing Morgan Bryan. And I was like, oh, dang it. And she goes, I know, I do it all the time too. I'm so used to her name as that. And Morgan Bryan even said that. Morgan Gautrat even said that. She calls herself Morgan Bryan. She's like so used to calling herself that as well in the press conference today. So I felt alleviated that I'm not the only one, including Morgan Gautrat herself, who struggles with trying to remember her as Morgan Gautrat, because covered soccer long enough to know that to me, that's Morgan Bryan. But
yep. absolutely.
It's how things are.
I don't always pay attention to people getting married. So like I saw Morgan Gautrat in a lineup last year and I was like, what? So
Yeah. Yep.
And then Vanessa DiBernardo. Again, apologize
Yes.
if I say that incorrectly to anybody. So both of them from Chicago, both of them played together, both of them from Chicago Red Stars. Vanessa actually from Chicago. I mean, she
Yep.
grew up there, played university there,
Yeah.
got drafted there. Morgan was traded there from Houston in 2017, I think it was. So they played
Mhm.
together for several years now. They've known each other in the U20s, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. They've known each other for a long time. They're really good friends. They've got that chemistry. So you got two midfielders coming from a team that had a very strong midfield. They had some weaknesses in Chicago.
Anchored by Samuels.
Yeah.
In the U20. Sorry, if you go all the way, trace them all the way back to the U20 national team that won the World Cup. That midfield was Samuels, Vanessa DiBernardo, and Morgan Bryan, and which is now going to be Morgan Gautrat. So that's fun to think about for next year if they're all healthy.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But in Chicago, they were two parts of a really strong midfield for the Red Stars that had other weaknesses, but it's pretty exciting. So my quick thoughts on both of them. Vanessa is a 8/10. Morgan's a 8/6 or 6/8, however you want to say that. So they really do fill in a couple of spots that the current needed. Been looking at stats. Morgan is like 99 percentile for progressive passes. This was in 2021 because you didn't play enough last year to actually have the whole good stats and stuff. And then Vanessa also, passes attempted 99 percentile in the league, 87 percentile in completion, and 99 percentile in progressive passes. This team needed people who could pass up to Kristen Hamilton and CC Kaiser and Elise Bennett and Lynn Williams next year.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely needed. I've been talking for a while. I'll let you jump in there.
Oh yeah. The current had the second lowest passing completion rating of any team in the NWSL last year. Only San Diego Wave had a lower total passing completion percentage, and the current were the lowest short passing completion percentage in the league last year. And so I think there are plenty of times in games where they were so good at they're so good at applying pressure in certain areas of the field, especially when teams are trying to get out of their defensive third. But they would win the ball back, and they wouldn't have the people who could take care of it enough to continually create true dangerous passing movements. And I think not that there was an experience level. I think it was a level like it was like who the players were. They would turn a team over, and then they had a bunch of people who themselves were ball progressors, as in the people who are going to receive the pass between the lines or are going to dribble it themselves. More as in how they progress the ball is by taking it themselves. But they didn't really have the right people to feed it to them. And then so these people who are going to be the ones who, quote, take it themselves and start running out of defense, then when they're in a situation where they need a pass, that's not really part of their skill tree. So I look at a player like, this is something Potter's mentioned to me too, is that there's a way that they could continue to keep pressure and keep doing that, but be a little bit cleaner with the ball. Brian had said it, or Gautrat had said, gosh dang, I'm going to do it all day now.
Just say Morgan. Just say Morgan. That's
yes.
all I'm going to do from now on.
I know, right?
Mo or Morgan.
Yes. Morgan mentioned it in the press conference today too, of, she felt like they were being brought in to really help the team retain the ball better. And I think they can
maintain the calmness. Maintain
yes,
a calmness that the Kansas City didn't have last year. I think is not exactly how she said it, but I think it's closer.
And I think that's probably correct, especially if you look at the final. I remember being in a final every single time they'd win the ball off Portland. They'd go and they'd have everybody. It just there wasn't a calmness as in that instance. And I don't think there was a clean way out of the what Portland had done with them, with their backline and their midfield in terms of stifling that transition game that the Current have been so successful with. So a little bit more balance in the midfield. And I think it's the second year now for a roster for Potter's vision and idea, and I think they get an opportunity to see what didn't work. They almost won a championship regardless, but I think in terms of trying to perfect things, these moves are the right type of moves. And I also think, like, sure, the player type is good; it's a good fit, but you're bringing in players who have experienced the big moments. And I think that's a huge aspect of them in the locker room in terms of leadership and experience that will also play out in what they do on the field. Potter made a comment to me when I talked to him on Wednesday that, you look at Portland, and who they brought off as substitutes in the final was Sagita, Dunn, and I forget who the other one was off the top of my head, but and he said we had a bench full of rookies to bring on. They don't have people that have the experience in those moments to do it. And I think that was something where I felt like, okay, so now you've added your experience, that not necessarily that these two are going to be coming off the bench. That's not the case. But in adding this type of experience to the locker room, just creates more and more and more of those players that have been through the big moments and can lead them, past it. You have now multiple players who started a World Cup final and won. That's as big as it gets, and so I think that's a huge opportunity for the Current to take it to the next level.
Absolutely. Yeah, he mentioned the same thing because Daniel and I both pretty much got to interview Matt and Cammie Levin Ashton, if I have that right.
Correct.
Again, Matt and Cammie. So we both got to interview them separately instead of together for a change. So I think they were able to practice giving us the same lines in two different ways.
Yeah, well, maybe. Or we just asked the same questions.
There is that. No, I'm sure we did for the most part, just in slightly different ways. But like you mentioned, the players Portland brought off the bench. It wasn't just that they were veterans, but they were big name players, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now maybe some players get moved to the bench for the Current that are not necessarily big name players, but will have experience and have that quality to make a difference coming in. They were a little short on that at that point last year. Keeping getting hurt last year didn't help either, though.
No, it didn't. It also causes, times where I think Lolo Bonta was saying it after the Seattle game. She felt physically gassed before the final. They had already exerted so much just to get there that, they maybe were, because they didn't have the depth to rotate because of how injuries and everything else had played out, that they were at a point where, they were just gritting through it, and it eventually started to catch up with them later on in the season.
Now the interesting thing is, because obviously there's a lot of parts that are still in play out there. Mm-hmm. Desiree Scott is still a free agent out there. The Current still have basically the rights to Kate Delfava and Addie McCain. They're not under contract as the time that we speak. Basically everything that I got was that they're still talking to all of them and trying to get them back, but that you don't know what'll happen with that. And with the position that Morgan can play, and knowing what Alex Loera can play, is Desi going to be back? Is she needed back?
It's a good question. I still think I'd be. I asked Cammie this question. Let me see if I can pull up my tweet quickly, but my personal thought on this, and just my hunch, is that if Desi chooses to play in 2023, then she most likely will with the Current in some capacity, at least be on the roster. But that's just my feeling. I'm not saying that'll happen 100%, but value her a lot. Her leadership this past year, her contribution on the field. We're having conversations with her, and we'll hope that it'll end in a good place for both of us. Kind of aligns with what I've asked multiple people around the club about how that's going, and have kind of gotten the same. Both sides would want to do something. They're just not sure if they're at a point yet where they're going to come to that agreement. And I think even um, I want to say in part of the answer that Cammy gave me mentioned even the fact that she's kind of enjoying some time off too, for the first time in a while. So I'd be curious to see exactly how it all plays out. Like I said, I think if she's playing in 2023, I'd be shocked if it's anywhere other than Kansas City. However, the NWSL is full of chaos and unpredictability. So who knows?
And I'm sure there's a few teams out there would love to add her in as a piece, either starting or depth. I do think that with her likely being on the Canadian roster for the World Cup next year and the buildup of friendlies and etc., she would miss quite a bit of time with whatever team she's on. And then, of course, she'll probably go to the Canadian League after that. But a little bit of a joke, but it's very possible. Maybe even as a coach or in the front office. But I'm not sure if they need her as much now. I mean, again, her quality, what she brings, the leadership experience, would love to have her back on the team. But you have Loera, who filled in really well for her last year. You have Morgan, who can fill in for her really well at that spot. And Morgan even said she'd like to play a double pivot, which would be very interesting to have her and Loera next to each other, because both of them, in my mind, have a lot of similarities that they can receive that ball and take the next step forward while the other one covers. Yeah. So I would like to actually see that. But that's the next thing, is that I think Matt will have a lot of options for how he puts out a team.
Yeah, and I think at one point too, he really did get pigeonholed into the 3-4-3 and 3-1-4-2, because that was who they had available. But you remember the start of the season, they ran 4-3-3, a 4-3-1-2 diamond, kind of a narrow diamond in the midfield with their fullbacks bombing forward, and it created a whole lot of attacking pressure. I mean, that game against Louisville to start the year, I know Louisville wasn't great, but in Louisville, I know 1-1 draw, but they had like almost 25 shots that they took, and chances that they were creating. And you could see very early on that was maybe the idea when they had all of their ideal personnel. They were able to make things work, and really were able to pivot multiple times. And I think even Morgan alluded to that today, where they had so many different ways that they could have played, based on scenarios and game states and all of that. But I think it makes it even more powerful when you can do so just by swapping out a person here and there, and you're not even you're not asking players to change within the form of how they're playing, or you're not asking players to make changes that they can't make, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And they have the players who can handle that adaptability, and do so in very key situations throughout a match. So I like I said, I think the moves are great for versatility, especially, you mentioned some of the older guard leaving too. I think other moves that were made, Kristen Edmonds, I even, not being on the team next year, she'll be in New York, with New Jersey with Gotham. And there's a lot of young players on that back line. There's also a lot of defenders that are coming through in the draft, and the current have a crap ton of draft picks, and they have ability to create a young core in the back line. They have the ability to maybe not even need as many center backs. Maybe they go to a back four, in how they're playing. So I think that that then you don't need to have like 6 center backs on your roster, or 7 or 8. So it changes what you do and don't need. But there's young players like Jenna Weinbrenner who can fill in that role. Alex can also play very well as a central defender, and Elizabeth Ball back there. Who knows if they make more additions on that side of the ball too, or that on that line specifically. So I think the moves continue to play into the versatility that Potter wants to be able to have tactically, where their overall identity doesn't necessarily change, and how they want to play, just in the formation that they use to get to their desired result, might change up here and there.
All right,
which keeps everybody on his toes, which is exactly what Potter wants. So,
oh, absolutely, which I don't blame him. It's goodness.
No.
Yeah. I think one of the big elephant that we need to in the room kind of conversation that we haven't mentioned yet is we're pretty confident Lynn Williams will be ready to go next year because with what we've already seen from her at the end of last year. But Sam Ewis, with these moves, it also makes me wonder if Sam is they're just not counting on her being on the field. Obviously they want her to be. They will do everything they can to get her there, but I just wonder if they're just not counting on her being there at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has a good deal to do with it, in my opinion, as well. So they can say all that they want to say, but until we see Sam Ewis healthy on the field, at this point, it's going to be hard to believe that anything else that's said about it, because until that moment happens, we're at a point now where we can't really assume that that's going to be the case.
They're always really reticent. They're always really reticent about saying anything. Yeah. But just the fact that they're not saying anything at this point, oh, she's doing some good progress. It's all, well, day to day, she's working hard, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It just leads me to believe that, and this is definitely not hoping for this, because I mean, Sam was one of my favorite players with the national team before she came to Kansas City. She's a great player. I hope I'm wrong. I hope she comes out and is back to the player she was. I'm just so not counting on it at this point.
Yeah, I think I'd be very shocked if we never saw Sam Ewis on the field again, and two, never saw her play another game with the Current. However, I don't think that they're 100% confident that the situation has resolved itself. And if it has resolved itself, then they're still in an insanely good position. I think they're an insanely better position that they are in, and they're already in an insanely good position right now with that midfield. So when you make insurance moves like this, then when everybody gets healthy, then and when and if they get healthy, then all of a sudden you're looking at a really strong roster. Sporting has talked, just to take another page from another team, Sporting has talked a lot about, all right, our roster next year, we're going to have Gotti and Eric Tommy, and we're going to have Alan Polito and Willie Agata. But until we see Gotti and Eric and Alan Polito playing and close to the level that we can expect of them, the depth is still, it's all talk. And so when we can actually see that depth play out, we'll get a real answer. But it's fun to, of course, dream of what a midfield of Morgan Gautrat and Vanessa DiBernardo and Sam Ewis and anyone else who wants to be a part of that midfield is going to look like when they step on the field in 2023.
Yeah, I think I saw somebody joking online that they're going to just have 2 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 3 forwards at that point. So,
hey, I mean, 4-3-3 can eventually turn into that. So it's probably all right.
All right. So really good news with both those players. We do expect that there will be some other moves probably in the next, I don't know, I'll say 2, 3, 4 weeks. I mean, it's got to be because with the draft coming up here in the next, it's really not that much longer.
In January 14th is the NWSL draft.
Yeah, so a little over a month.
Which is over a month.
Kansas City has had always good picks with I know Hugh Williams has been one of the big movers of that, and with Cammie there making some moves also, they should be able to get some good draft picks with 8 picks.
And maybe get some other good players in by trading said 8 draft picks. So
very true. All right. Anything else? True. Anything else we need to cover tonight, Daniel?
Outside of, I think we covered most of the other news and notes for the team. Just that Taylor Leach has retired, and Kristen Evans won't be back as she signed with Gotham. I think those are the main ones that I really.
They also released the third keeper, Sydney Schneider.
Yes, Sydney Schneider. I personally, I'll be surprised if Kate Delfava and Addie McCain, I'm less so confident in, but I'd be really surprised if Kate Delfava isn't part of the team next year. Iron Woman played every single match for the Current in the regular season, and I even asked Potter about her yesterday, not necessarily about her roster status, but just about how changing potentially changing formations affects players who found a really good home in that right wingback thing. And he spoke very glowingly of how he would expect that she would fit into the scenario. So I'll be surprised if Kate's not back.
I would be surprised and saddened.
Yeah.
She was a player I didn't really value a lot in 2021, but in 2022, I came to really appreciate her. And I mean, her role changed and she greatly improved. So
and by the time we finally got to talk to her too, we were like, oh wow, she's a freaking awesome interview. We love players who are good interviews. Morgan was a great interview today as well. Appreciated a lot of honesty, and very, very appreciative of that. And so looking forward to chatting with at time of most of you are probably listening on Friday or later. So we're supposed to talk to Vanessa DiBernardo on Friday. And maybe if you're listening on Saturday, we already talked to her. Sorry.
And if you're lucky, I'll cut a couple of sound bites out from the interviews and tag them on the end of this pod. But if you're not, well, we'll fit them in some way.
Sucks to suck if you're not. Yeah. Anyways, I got nothing left.
Right. No,
it's just silly season. So
it is.
Who knows what's coming next?
There was a rumor about a player in Europe. Don't know much about her, but I did, and honestly, didn't even ask about her. That's not normal for me. Normally I have my list of all the rumors that I want to run down, but of course I know what the answer would have been.
We're always looking.
Yes.
You have to ask Cammy about that.
Yep. Matt would say you have to ask Cammy. Cammy would have to say yes, Matt.
Subterfuge.
All right. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back when we have more news to talk about. If not before, maybe we just need to get together and try to break down how we think they will fit together. All right. Thanks everybody for listening.